Hi there, I'm Charlotte Chaney, and this is my husband, Bryan Chaney.
Howdy.
And this is Soul Connections. It is January 14th, 2018, and we're going to talk a little bit about parenting. So this kind of came to the front of my radar. Last week, I gave a talk at a young moms group, and the mothers were exhausted, just the way I was at their time. Hey, Suzanne. And I heard them talking about how they're driving their babies around the block to get them to sleep. Did you ever do that?
Ran vacuum cleaners, ran circular saws, anything.
Yeah. So, I did. I certainly did. And I drove my kids around the block because I didn't want them to cry. And I sit back now when I don't have babies and I look at that situation and I'm like, okay, you're exhausted and you're not really saving your kids anything by not just sticking them in their cribs and letting them cry. And I'm saying this because I learned that hey, Lisa, good to see you. So I feel like I failed that. And so I'm kind of doing some thoughts on what I wish I had done differently. And that's one of them. I maybe wish that I had honored myself more, put my kids in a crib, let them cry, let them be kids, let me be an adult, let me have my life, let them have their lives, and we can come together and care for one another. But this just giving up everything to serve my kids was a really bad idea. So how about you? What might you? So just for the record, we did not raise babies together. We together have 8 kids. Hence,
you're right.
Hence the stockings behind us.
So our kids were really, really bad this year, and we're still thinking that Santa Claus might show up and bring them something for their stockings. So they're all empty. There's not even any coal in there.
So we didn't raise our children together, but when we came together and married together, our kids were pretty much done with childhood for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what
some of them are reverting back to childhood.
Right. What might you have done differently?
Well, in terms of keeping the babies quiet, duct tape would have helped. Do you think? No. Okay. So I don't know. There's a list. So it's an open book test. So I made some notes and some things. So Charlotte asked me what I would do differently, and I don't know. There's a bunch of things that I could do differently. I think one of the things was, and Charlotte probably shares this as well, is we wouldn't drive our faith down their throats. I mean, we really did a lot to, tell them to go to church, tell them to, study, read the Bible. You can't do this, you can't do that.
Hi, Tiara.
And it was kind of, suffocating in some ways in what we were doing. I mean, we were new Christians at the time. We're trying to do everything right. And in some respects, we probably overdid it. Now, in that respect also, I think we probably planted some seeds that we probably haven't seen yet come to fruition. So maybe down the road, we'll see some of that come about. Some of our kids have faith and they're working it and doing well with it. Some aren't. But I think to just force it on them probably was a mistake.
So one example, my oldest child, I became a Christian when he was 3. And so the cool thing is he got to really see my life transform from who I was to who I was becoming. But at the same time, I just was so fired up about my faith. And even though I didn't know you at the time, you say you were the same way. And I was so fired up about my faith. And that child today is more convinced that the aliens are going to come back to this earth than he is that Jesus is going to come. And I'm so sorry for the amount of just shoving my faith into his ears and down his throat and not letting him become for who himself is. I think that's sort of where he ended up following the aliens, because I didn't really give him the option. I was like, this is what the truth is and you got to believe it. And this is, just like, I regret that.
Right.
It sounds like you're kind of
same thing. Yeah, probably could have done it differently. Which kind of leads me to the next thing too. Is if you want,
Teresa.
If you want to draw anyone into your life, you kind of have to make it attractive. So, how does it? If you are a Christian or you are religious or whatever, and you want your kids to adopt it, are you doing it? Is it attractive the way you're doing it? Does it look like something your friends would want to be part of, or your kids? So. Take stock of that. And then that leads me to my next thing is, what I would do differently was I would do more of the fun things that I like to do before I had kids. So I used to like to do biking, do sailing, used to like go up in the mountains. I did more with music before I got married and things like that. and before we had kids. And so you tend to give some of that up because you are driving kids around the block to try to get them to sleep, and you are taking them to Chuck E. Cheese, and you've got, stuff to do with school and everything. So,
Can you share a little bit how your kids might have benefited from you not giving up your hobbies, passions, or that kind of stuff?
Right. Well, you draw them into it. So, for example, like I like to, here's the biggest mistake I made. I sold my 1970 Chevelle right before we moved to Frederick back in 2002. I didn't really have room in the garage, and I thought, the kids don't care anyway. Let's just get rid of it because I can't really take care of it, and I don't have time to work on it and all that. Big mistake, because when they got to be about 15 or 16, they saw these pictures of and their kids are talking about classic cars, and they're like, "Daddy, you had one of these? Are you kidding? Where did it go? Why did you sell it?" I'm like, I messed up. So had I kept that and had I been working on it, maybe my kids would have, wanted to know, hey, what are you doing? Where are you going? Are you going to a car show? Let's go for a ride or whatever. I may have built that passion into them like I have, because that's kind of what my dad with me. He was a big car guy. All of our family is car guys, and and we all kind of bought into that. So that's one thing I could have given that passion to them maybe.
So earlier you were sharing with me how you were on a Wild at Heart retreat, and what did you learn? What did you learn about your passions within that?
So one of the things in Wild Heart is by John Eldredge. It's a great book, and then there's a boot camp that goes along with it. One of the things that they taught us is that God gives you a certain package of passions, desires, talents, and skills to do something that only you can do. I don't know what it is for anybody else. I don't fully know what it is for me, but he's given me some passion, skills, and desires that he wants me to use. If I don't use those, if I'm not fired up about something, nobody else is either. So if you are, if you're executing on those passions, desires, and skills and gifts, somebody's going to say, wow, look at that. I don't even know what he's doing there, but he's fired up and excited about it. Maybe it's, I don't know, welding or something, and if you're fired up and passionate about it, you're going to draw others into it, and they're going to want to do it too. So that's how that works.
And so that kind of goes into the theme of where you are remaining true to who you are.
Right.
And I know that my generation, I wasn't the only one that just gave up everything that I wanted, whether it was to work out or whether it was whatever, just to serve my kids. And
it's not selfish to do these things that you like to do, as long as everything's in balance.
Right. So I think I was thinking today, why did I do that? And I think part of it was because my parents my parents, if you're younger, I know Tiara is, my parents' had kids, and they would say, speak when spoken to. So the kids they were not treated, in my opinion, appropriately, right? They were really, really distanced. I know that evidently my dad's mother wouldn't really hold him when he was crying. She thought that was spoiling him. And so I was like, I'm totally opposite. But the other thing is our parents put us in playpens, and when I became a mother, I'm like, I'm never doing that to my child. I'm not sticking him in this little cage, but I realize now that maybe that would have been a good thing to teach them to kind of self-soothe and to take some time and do some things on their own, and not just give up everything. So that gave our moms time to do stuff, right? That kind of thing.
That's, I got to just talk about, since Tiara's on here. Tiara, she's doing a great job with Liam. Tiara obviously has a restaurant, and she put up something on Facebook where Liam was actually in the restaurant doing something, and maybe starting to cook. He's getting attracted to her passion for cooking, and that's how it's supposed to work.
Her young son, and also, Tiara's father is our pastor, and her husband is on the sound team in addition to being this wonderful chef. But and they're modeling for Liam, and I do see that, and I think you're right. I think that's really special. So just thinking things I did not let my kids cry. I mean, I did not ever let my children cry. So I really never gave them an opportunity to figure out how to self-soothe. I was constantly there. I breastfed for a really long time, and it was any upset, I nursed them. And, now I'm like, well, what? That did not really provide them an opportunity to learn how to care for themselves. It made them dependent on me, right? Do anything like that?
Oh, we did that. Yeah, I remember with my oldest son, John, I think for 3 days in a row, he cried for 4 hours a night. until he finally realized that we weren't going to come and get him, and then he slept through the night, and so did I.
That's what we called the Ferber method when I was a
Yep.
young mother. So then there were certain things that I did well, and it had to get to a point to get there. And one was I budgeted for housekeeping. And so a lot of new moms are just so strung out, and they do not understand the value of budgeting for a housekeeper. And it's what do you think about it?
I mean, if you can afford it and do it, that's great. Now, here's the other thing too. I think that's a good opportunity to show your kids how to serve as well. So we say Saturday's cleaning day. We're going to spend 2 hours cleaning the house, and then we're going to go have fun. But don't make it an all day. We got to clean for 8 hours. Nobody wants to do that. But clean for 2 hours, and then we're going to go for ice cream. We're going to go to the park or whatever.
Right. And that's great. And I'm not 100% sure I could have done that, but but I do think if you're a young mom in particular, and do not, housekeeper is not some big luxury. I mean, it's just having someone help you. One thing I learned early on was, even in the Bible, even the poorest women in the Bible had maid servants. They did. God did not intend us to do this all by ourselves. And so I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't have a job outside of the house. And when I needed a babysitter during the day, or I needed help, I felt like a failure. And I wasn't a failure. I was really just caring for myself, but it took me a long time to get to that point. And there's that tension between the mother that works outside of the home and the one that doesn't. And on that note, I just want to say, I wish that I had had some sort of a job outside of the home, because I didn't. I availed myself to every need of my children. And I provided them a lie that I'm not important. I don't have needs, and you don't need to sacrifice for me. And that was really wrong. And I'll tell you, that was a really, I served them. I met my goal: serve, and make sure they're happy and comfortable, and they have their uniforms clean, and they're never late, and birthday parties and all this stuff. But I never once said, hey, I'm a valuable person, and I need you to miss something because I have something going on. I never really did that. And so I deprived my children of respecting me because of that.
So another thing I thought of too when you're talking about that was, in line with the housekeeper, is go out on dates. Let your kids see that they are going to have to spend some time alone with a babysitter while mom and dad go out on a date. You get so busy with your kids, and you just wrap yourself around that, and you got to take care of your relationship. So even if you don't have money to go, out to dinner, go grab ice cream or something, or sit in the parking lot and talk or whatever.
Go to the library, go for a walk.
Go have a day. And guys, open the door for your wife. She still likes that. Okay. Make sure you pick up the check. I mean, come on, you can do this. You did it to go, meet her initially. You can still do it when you're married.
Right. And I will say, my first marriage, we didn't make it, but we dated. And we actually had a standing babysitter every Saturday night. And so I knew that she knew my kids, and I was comfortable with that. And then even if we had nothing going on, we had this sitter for 4 hours or whatever. And it was great. Mm-hmm. And, if we had something come up, good, we're set. But if we had something not come up, we just went out into dinner or something. It was nice to really spend some time. So that was one thing I did well. And another thing I feel really glad that I did raising 4 sons was I did not let them have more than one extracurricular activity. I see these parents who have their kids in sports and piano and all these different things, and yikes.
They need downtime. Yeah, I had, on that note, so what I did with my kids is, especially with the boys, and I guess the girls too, I said, you got to try out a sport. You have to be involved in some kind of sport, and I want you to try this sport. Go to 3 practices. If you really, really, really hate it, I won't make you keep going. But you might like it, and you might want to stay in it. And so some of them, they got out of them. Some they stayed, but I would never force them to stay in something they didn't want to.
Yeah, and sports are good because it's keeping them active. And I never really understood the value of sports at the time, and I don't know how it is today. It's probably the similar thing. You sign up for a sport, you get a trophy, and that's really lame. But the reality is, in high school, you don't get trophies like that. In high school, you really got to work and
you gotta win.
Yeah,
you
you do. And and a team. And I have a high schooler right now who is wrestling, and that's a very independent sport, but he's part of a team. And so there's really great stuff happening in sports that I never quite realized because I didn't participate the way I should have. One other thing I did well that I feel good about was I really lived out my faith. So I mentioned earlier that Travis, or my oldest one, kind of he was 3 when I came to Christ, and he really saw this big change happen. But I part of living out my faith for me was crying out to God in hard times, just flat out, like out loud, God, I need you, particularly with young kids. I had 4 sons, right? And they weren't sitting around playing Barbies. They were running around the house. And there were times it was so chaotic, and I just threw my hands up in front of them, just, Lord, please. and I realized the other day during this talk, I was a real screamer as a young mom. And I was really ashamed of that. I screamed at my children. I didn't know how else to communicate to them. And I asked God, I said, God, please help me to have more grace. And he did. And by the end of their childhood, I really wasn't a screamer anymore. And I was so thankful. So, a lot of people are screamers, and it's just not something that it's not a very comfortable environment for kids to have a screaming parent. And so if that's you, do what I did and call up to God and ask him to help you. So living out my faith, how did you do with your faith?
Living it out?
With your kids?
Well, I guess a couple of things. I was a volunteer in the church. I did sound, as you well know, a lot, and helped build a church. A lot of these things they didn't see. All they saw was that I was doing some of these things. So, they, like, for example, when we built the church, they didn't see it until it was actually built. And they're like, wow, Daddy helped do this.
Right.
There was some sacrifice that had to be made there. But they saw me with a lot of men friends. So luckily I'm part of the Water Boys group, and I had some really close men friends that I studied the Bible with, prayed with, and asked for advice, and they held me accountable and things like that. And they still remain my friends now. So I tell especially my sons, I'm like, you can't go through this life alone. You've got to have another man you can talk to. You've got to have other men to go to help you through this thing called life. You can't do it alone.
Right.
I don't know whether they're getting that or not. I even talked to your boys about it as well. And so I just think you have to, because guys, let me tell you, something's going to happen sometime, and you got to call someone you need to talk to someone at late at night or whatever, and you may not want to talk to your wife right away about it because you lost a job, or you wrecked the car, or something happened, a friend, who knows what it might be. You need other men in your life to talk to. So.
Yeah. I mean, can you, yeah. So I'll have to say, kind of, for women too, your husband is not your girlfriend. And there's a lot of times when there's something that your husband's not going to get. And, I'm not saying go around him, but just don't go to him with everything and expect him to be your best girlfriend, because he's not going to be. And that is something that comes through maturing.
Coming off of a weekend when there were
a
bunch of girls here in the house, and one guy, so it was all fun.
Thank you. All right, so I think about some common pitfalls that some parents get into, and I think that I think I've done a pretty good job with this, but letting go. Partially I had to. So I was in bed for a year with 4 of my sons. One turned 8 while I was sick, and one turned 16. And so I couldn't be a mother for a year. And so they had to kind of live without me. And then when I tried to come back and be a parent, they didn't really want a mother at that point, other than the youngest one. But in general, I think I'm pretty good at saying, you can do your own homework. And they did. My kids really did a good job. I actually never did homework with my kids. And if they didn't do well in school, I was going to get involved. But they had to earn that presence, And then as far as what they wanted to do, I think I did a really good job letting go and letting them go, just trusting them as people.
I call that thriving on neglect. It's kind of like how we make our plants grow. They thrive on neglect. So same thing. Right.
So just understanding that they're people. One thing that's so hard in parenting is that your children have their own generation. And, I did always writing a novel in my head for this 1920s situation. A girl in the 1920s, she's a teenager, and her mother was horrified because she wanted to be a flapper. And and she wanted to kind of let loose and have a bob haircut and all this stuff. And for her mom, that was so scandalous, right? To be a flapper and have a mini skirt and a bob. And so for me, what's more scandalous is, oh, these nudie pictures on Instagram or whatever that our kids are just inundated with, right? And so it's so hard as a parent to kind of grasp that they're in this different generation. And I know we did things that probably horrified our parents, but it was kind of our generation. And so I'm not saying just to kind of let go and let them just run with all the fads and things, but to also understand that there is things in their generation that we're never going to get. And no matter how cool you are, and I am the coolest mom.
Absolutely.
And stepmom, even
someday
though,
they'll realize that.
Even though they don't have that figured out yet, but I am.
So
indeed.
you made me think of something else too. So something else I've told my kids a lot is, I'm here to be your parent. I'm not here to be your friend. Okay. My job is to raise you up to be a responsible adult, and not everything I do you're going to like, and that's too bad. So the only way to do that is with some discipline, with some guidelines. And that doesn't mean being a drill sergeant either, but it means having some basic guidelines, and they want that. They want the security of a routine. They want security of boundaries, and sometimes that means saying no.
And I'm really, really bad at it. And I think one of my greatest failures as a parent has not been being a parent. When they were babies, we were talking tonight about up until age 12, I would say I was a really dynamite mother, but after that, I didn't do real well with setting boundaries or holding them accountable, or, I'm still growing from being a very too much of a people pleaser. And I want to be liked, right? And so that includes my kids. And so that's not a very safe place for a child to be, having to like their parent. What greater gift I could have given them if I could have said, this is how life is, and you're going to be the child and I'm going to be the adult. And I'll be honest with you, I still don't do it well. I just don't. I'm not good at it. And to be honest with you, I don't think my parents did the best job at it. So I have to sing your praises. So I watch Bryan right now. He's got kids that are really struggling with real life issues, and he could fix it. He could go and provide for these needs, and he's not. And I'm in awe of it, because I could never do it. And I do try and let you do that with my kids. It's hard. You had to kick one of my kids off of our cell phone plan, and twice actually. And that's so, how could you do that? They need their phones and we can afford it. But you're teaching them how to become men, and you're teaching your
women.
Right. And your kids are going to have this just incredible skill, particularly with budgeting and all this stuff, because you're not going in and just fixing.
So on the one thing, so I made a list of things that I could have done differently, which is really, really long, and then there's another list with some things I think I did well, and it's a little shorter. One of the things that I did with my kids initially was teach them how to budget. So they had allowances from pretty much the time that they understood what a dollar bill was. Early on, it was maybe $1 a week, and it was $5 a week, whatever. But it was really interesting, because even when the kids were maybe 8 years old or whatever, 9 years old, we'd go into Toys R Us and they'd bring their money and they'd say, wow, I really want to buy this, whatever, Lego set or this Barbie or whatever it is. And I only have $20 and it's $24, Daddy, can I borrow some money? I'm saying, no, you have to wait till next month or next week. And they say, all right, well, you know what? I think what I'll do is I'll get this $10 Barbie over here and this little $5 item instead. Or sometimes they'd say, you know what? I'll come back next month and I'll get it. They have to have that pain of knowing I don't have enough money, but I will next month. That's budgeting from age 8. And then I had because I was in sales, I had a very elaborate plan. I used to call it the attaboy system, and they would earn attaboys if they did something right, and that would get them more money. They're literally on commission for doing things right around the house. And that helped. That helped them understand that, wow, if I do, there were certain things that they had to do, make the bed, basic things. You don't get extra for that, but if you did extra things, you got a little bit more. And now that they're older, instead of just giving the kids money to, because some of them are in college and they need money, we'll lend it to them. They've got real life loan agreements that that will give them the money, but it's under a loan agreement. So when they get out of college, they will repay it. And if something happens to us, it's a legal document that they'll have to deal with. It's the right way to do it, because when they get out in real life, that's how it works. And they are making decisions now, tough ones, where, oh wow, I can't buy this now, or I have to save some money because I got a big expense coming up later. One of our kids just recently asked, say, hey, can I have an advance on next month's or whatever? I'm like, nope, don't think you can. And
that
so
was for school books.
That was for school books.
And you said no. And I have so much respect for that. And I still can't do it, and sometimes I need you to do that with my kids. And I step back and I let you. Mm-hmm. I let you teach them how to be a man by not giving them, I'm too much of a here, I don't want you to suffer type. And I'm not helping them with that. And I really, really respect that with you. So, another thing I think that happens with people as a pitfall is not getting healthy yourself. So if you've got a situation in your life, and we all do, I know for me, I needed to go to Al-Anon, which is the sister program to AA. I needed to go to counseling. I had a coach. And, if you're not healthy, you're going to have a hard time being a healthy parent and raising healthy kids. And so taking whatever steps are needed to get yourself healthy is going to really protect your children, particularly in a marriage. What I've learned in retrospect, having gone through divorce and now having a very healthy marriage, is that having a healthy marriage is probably the best gift you can give your children other than faith in God, right? So I didn't have that. I pretended. Mm-hmm. And
you call it self-care. That's what you talk about all the time.
Right. Yeah. I had a facade and I made it look good. And by golly, we had the prettiest Christmas card in town. Mm-hmm. But my kids didn't buy that. Mm-hmm. Something was wrong and they knew that. Mm-hmm. And I was covering it up. And so, and I'm having to deal with that.
Well, that's another thing that I think I did fairly well was to be humble. And by that, I mean, I actually said this to my oldest son numerous times. I'm like, you're the first, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 15-year-old, 18-year-old I've ever raised. Okay. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to, discipline you on this. I don't know whether to say yes or say no. Let's talk about this. I got to figure it out because I don't know. So, if you go this route, this might happen. If you go this route, this might happen. So let's figure this out together because I don't know.
Right.
And to let them know that you didn't go to parent school and parent college and graduate with a straight A degree. We don't. There's nothing out there like that. So let them know that you're kind of figuring it out as you go as well.
Right. So I think we've covered the majority of what I had down here. Just I was wondering, is there anything about that your dad did that impacted you in your parenting, just to show, to kind of show that it really does carry down?
That's a whole other, probably video. Probably the best thing was, he respected my mom a lot. So, he treated her very well. So that helped a lot. You're benefiting from that. Probably he allowed me to make mistakes. He gave me a lot of latitude. He let me use any tool that he had in his workbench, circular saws, drills. I blew things up. I broke things. I started fires. I burned out things that I shouldn't have burned out. Shocked myself with 600 volts a couple times. That wasn't fun when I was like 12. So, but I learned how to do a lot of things and I wasn't afraid to make mistakes. He allowed me to push the envelope, which was something I still do today.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's pray.
Okay. Dear God, Lord, I just thank you for this time. I thank you for the people that joined us today, Lord. I just pray that they will look to you for guidance because, yes, there is no college out there that tells you how to be a parent, but the Bible has a lot of good stuff in there to help you do it. So, Lord, I just pray that people will go to you and go to the Bible to figure out how to be a better parent and just help all the parents out there know that they're not going to be perfect. They're going to make mistakes and to not beat themselves up, but to take care of themselves first. And if they take care of themselves and their marriage, their kids will benefit. And to do fun things, to budget in time for fun, Lord, and help people benefit from the mistakes that we made. In your name, amen.
And Lord, I just thank you that all the mistakes that I have made, that you are bigger than them. and that you are a God of grace, and that you come in and you help us change when we ask you, and we're open to your leadership, God. And I just thank you so much for that. Lord, Bryan and I are parents to 8 people, 8, adults and children, and you're with them all the time, and you hear our prayers, and we can trust you with that. And I forget that all the time when I worry, but you do have them in your hand, God. And I just love you for that, Lord. And I just trust you, and I trust your word. I ask that you would bless each and every listener tonight, bless their families, their children, and their relationships, Lord, and just be the center of our homes. In your holy name, amen.
Amen.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for being here.